It was a chilly Saturday night in the outskirts of a small American town. The moon hung low, casting a dim glow over a lonely highway. A group of rough-looking bikers, clad in leather and chains, roared their way down the road, kicking up dust and carrying the unmistakable scent of rebellion in the air. The leader, a burly man with tattoos covering his arms, grinned as his gang sped past the usual pit stops. They had bigger plans tonight, plans that involved taking over the town's only bar and letting loose. However, they didn't know that trouble had a different agenda for them. Just a few miles off the main road, there was an old, run-down anti-drug enforcement base. The building had seen better days, but the soldiers stationed there were tougher than the rest. They didn't just patrol this forgotten corner of the world, they protected it. Among them was Sergeant Luke, a quiet and unassuming figure with a past he never talked about. He wasn't just any soldier. Luke had been through more than most could imagine. After years of covert operations and dealing with unspeakable horrors, he'd chosen this remote base as his refuge, hoping to heal if that was even possible. But tonight, Luke wasn't just trying to survive. He was looking for redemption. As the bikers pulled into the town's only bar, their raucous laughter filled the air. They threw their weight around, terrorizing the locals, shoving their way into the bar like it was their own personal den. Luke, who had grown used to the quiet nights at the base, decided to grab a drink at the same bar. He wasn't a fan of crowds, but sometimes the loneliness got the best of him. What he didn't expect was to be immediately sized up by the biker gang, particularly the leader, who saw the soldier as an easy target. The leader swaggered over, a beer bottle in hand, eyeing Luke with amusement. "Hey, soldier boy," the biker grinned. "You lost or something? This isn't a place for you." Luke's eyes met the man's calm but piercing. He didn't respond immediately. There was a calm in him now, one born from years of training, but it was also a calm that would soon give way to something else if pushed. The leader, sensing weakness, chuckled and pushed Luke's shoulder hard. "What's wrong? You scared? Or maybe you're a little too soft for this life." The air grew heavy. The other bikers crowded around, sensing an opportunity to cause more chaos. They didn't know that Luke had faced battles that none of them could even begin to comprehend. They didn't know what his silent, steady gaze meant. With a sudden movement, Luke stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. The leader scoffed, thinking Luke was just going to back down. "You made a mistake, friend," Luke said softly, his voice a low growl. His hands moved in a blur, disarming the biker leader before he even had time to react. The rest of the bikers froze in surprise. The room grew quiet. Luke didn't say another word. He had been trained for situations like this, not for bar fights, but for high-stakes confrontations where seconds could mean life or death. He knew how to handle the pressure, how to disarm a person, how to make sure the situation stayed in his control. The leader's arrogance turned into fear. "You don't know who you're messing with." Luke's gaze hardened. "I know exactly who I'm messing with." The fight that followed wasn't a chaotic brawl. It was a calculated sequence of moves, like a dance. Luke didn't hurt anyone unless he had to, but every move he made was decisive. The bikers were no match for the soldiers' precision and experience. Within moments, the bar was filled with the sound of the bikers' groans and shuffling feet as they fled in shame. The locals who had witnessed the entire ordeal stood in stunned silence. The bartender, a woman who'd seen plenty of rough nights, let out a relieved sigh. I think they learned their lesson. Luke, now standing alone in the center of the room, straightened his uniform. He wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He was just doing what needed to be done. He gave a quick nod to the bartender and walked out into the night. The bikers would think twice before ever causing trouble in this town again. But more importantly, the soldier who had spent years fighting battles no one could see had reminded himself that redemption wasn't found in avoiding conflict, but in knowing when to stand up and fight. And for Sergeant Luke, that was enough.